Have you ever gone sailing? Not like this, you haven't. This is SailGP, 12 national teams, 50-foot high-performance catamarans racing on hydrofoil technology faster than the wind at speeds at over 60 miles per hour. In iconic global locations from New Zealand to New York, the Rolex SailGP Championship is unlike any other sporting league. Powered by nature, as their slogan says, SailGP is also possibly the most purpose-driven sport in the world. Alongside racing for championship points, each team vies for something else. Impact League points that reward teams for taking action to protect the planet and make sailing more inclusive. Teams are competing to save energy and water, rethinking every aspect of the sport from how they travel to what they wear, even what they eat. And this year, the first ever woman driver is leading a SailGP national team. Why do it? SailGP says simply to put sustainability and inclusion at the heart of sport. That's it. Well, that sounds like something worth elevating. Thank you for joining us. Our first guest this week, I'm so excited to talk to, is Fiona Morgan, the Chief Purpose Officer at SailGP. Probably one of the coolest titles I've ever heard. And I've covered the Supreme Allied Commander of Europe. So, I dig that. Fiona, thank you for joining us.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm so proud to be the first guest on the show. Thanks for telling our story and having me on.
Well, of course, when we decided we wanted to do this elevation project of ours, and I type in purpose driven, you come up. Like, you're the first. You're there, and you're clearly a pioneer leading purpose-driven initiatives, impact in global sports, but maybe not just for global sports, for the sponsors, the leagues, the teams, the athletes, for the larger culture, right? So I really wanted to talk to you today about your job and SailGP's efforts, but also kind of where you fit in the wider world and the influence you're having on making this kind of change. So, maybe let's start at the beginning. I know a lot about SailGP. You know a lot about SailGP. Maybe not the whole world knows about it, especially the world I come from in national security and defense. But there's an overlap, and I'll explain. We'll get to that. But tell me, give me the basics on SailGP, being the Chief Purpose Officer, and why your job exists.
Yeah, so SailGP, wow, it was set up to redefine our sport. It was co-founded by Larry Ellison and Sir Russell Coutts, who are the leader, kind of the visionaries behind what we do. It's an annual championship in iconic cities, close to shore racing, and you have national teams. And it really is like adrenaline-fueled, epic racing. It is insane. It's not sailing, it's racing. You have men and women on the boat. It's like a true equality in the sport that hopefully we're going to get to very soon. And it's just, and also has a purpose. We care about racing on the water, but racing for the planet and people too. So it's definitely not what you'd expect. And so you have to see it to believe it. And when people watch SailGP or they engage with it, they love it. Like, when we get them in, they are fans. So we're growing so fast. We are in season 5, about to end season 5, and it's been an epic trajectory for that. And I'm very proud to be the first Chief Purpose Officer in sports, and 5.5 years here at SailGP. And I suppose my job is really to show you can grow a business from a commercial revenue as well as fan growth with impact. You can kind of integrate it. It's a business strategy. It's a superpower. It's not a nice to have. It's not a tick box. It's not a comms exercise. It's part of driving the business forward. And that was always my goal, is to prove the business value of what we do. And it's very intentional that I'm called purpose and impact, not sustainability. We really think about how we show up, what we do, how, where our superpowers are. And it's been great, I suppose, seeing other people setting up purpose and impact teams. And I'm a mentor in women's sport, and I've had a lot of applicants, and it says, what would you like to be? What title would you like in 5 years? And there's been, I would say 10 to 15 say Chief Purpose Officer. And that makes me really proud that we've hopefully carved a career in sport that people want, aspire to be, and businesses see the value in.
I want to hear a little bit more about specifically the steps you're taking in SailGP, but is your job, you're an executive, you're a C-suite executive for a global sport league. And so is your job in creating the Impact League, which we'll talk about, or just existing, is it to promote the sustainability and the cause-driven work on the side? Is it to promote the sport itself? Is it to generate revenue and ticket sales, or maybe all the above?
All the above. So when you're in I suppose, a sport that's growing
Mm,
and you're, I suppose, in the leadership team early on, my job was how can we make purpose help the business grow? Like I was saying, the
yeah.
commercial value, investment, sponsorship, host venues, as well as growing the fan base, like the younger fan or the fan that's more environmentally conscious, or more the women, serving better content to our female fans. That's my job. And the reputation of SailGP. How do we maintain our reputation? How do we, do the right thing, be a good business? That's, yeah. So it kind of sits. It's quite a wide, I would say, remit. But we know purpose-driven organizations. I mean, there's statistics everywhere, and you'll know them as well as me. We know that they outperform everyone else because employees are more engaged. There's more innovation in the business. You have something different to give your sponsors. So it is a superpower, and it's interesting that the brands, we know consumer brands, everyone sees this, but at sport have kind of been a bit reluctant to lean into this space. So it's a data-driven strategy as well. If you have a purpose, you're going to drive more value.
Well, you said sport has been reluctant. I mean, what are the pressure points that you're coming up against when you talk to either, teams from different nations, different cultures, the sponsors themselves? I mean, where are you seeing the resistance, and where are you able to break through it, or where is it more receptive?
Yeah, I think SailGP is very different because we're a new, I suppose, challenger sport that has broken into the market, and
Yeah.
actually we're a disruptor that's good for sport. So we're not a disruptor here to make money. We're here to redefine sailing as well as making money and grow the sport. So we have been, open arms. People have embraced the way we're doing it. And so we haven't come up against many barriers because people have bought into us from day one. Larry identified 3 business areas. He wanted to be the key ingredients of SailGP, and they were technology, of course, entertainment, make it an entertainment and a kind of incredible experience for consumers on broadcast, that event,
Mm.
and sustainability. Show that you can do good and grow your business. So it's always been the DNA. So when people buy in or athletes come, this is expected. And also I suppose, Ocean's a racetrack. Our boats are powered by nature. So for those who don't know, the boats are powered by the wind, 3.8 times the wind. So you don't have motors on these boats. There's no fuel. That does mean, you're Mother Nature, you're kind of at Mother Nature's call. So you have to be nice to her, for the winds to go the way we want it. But I think it means we're authentic. People
Yeah.
understand it. Our athletes have seen it firsthand, climate change and, extreme weather. So it just kind of fits. And I don't think we have had pushback. I mean, the only pushback, we can talk about the Impact League at the beginning, was we're a new sport. We're trying to do everything. And this was another thing for people to do, that we're trying to figure out how to run a league. How do we get these events off the ground? The teams were new. So people were worried it would distract them from the racing product, when actually where we are now, it's like integrated into who we are. Like, it's not a distraction. They see it as an added value. But I think other sports probably, I think sport as a sector can be so innovative, right? Technology and lead the way. But sometimes commercially it can be kind of backward, and I think for me, when I meet commercial directors at the beginning, they probably were like, how are you a superpower for sponsors? Why are people going to want to sponsor SailGP? I mean, look at our sponsors. Rolex is our title sponsor. We have Emirates, DP World, Oracle. I mean, we have some of the biggest sports sponsor brands in the world. We have investors like Sebastian Vettel. We have Hugh Jackman. We have Ryan Reynolds. We have Kylian Mbappe. We have Anne Hathaway. They're not coming just because of sport. They're coming because you're building this, I suppose, future-focused business that they believe in, and brand they believe in, a growth story they believe in. So for me, when commercial directors were like, didn't see the value, I was kind of surprised by that. They're looking at traditional, like, branding and broadcast figures, when sponsors want more now. Sponsors are companies. They're under so much pressure. They have supply. We are a supply chain. You got to forget that. Like, we are their supply chain. So we're part of their reputation. So they want us to act the right way. They all have social impact and ESG teams and ways of working. And so if you integrate it, it's easier for them. And actually, why wouldn't you use the power of sport, the voice that we have with the work they're doing, and it all comes together? So I think it was just a traditional mindset in sport that they thought they didn't need to worry about it. And also, I think there was a bit of an arrogance in sport. They're like, this is not going to affect us. And what's amazing is when you look at the data, extreme weather, I mean, we're going to be one of the biggest sectors affected by, we're going to have to adapt, major events will have to adapt. Grassroots sports are going to be heavily affected because obviously extreme weather is going to affect grassroots sports being able to go on, because obviously elite sport will always find money and be able to update, make their facilities resilient, but grassroots sports won't. So there is a real risk to our sector. And, the IOC, certain people are leading the way and thinking that through and looking at climate risk and resilience and investment. But some other sponsors are like, it won't touch us, we're sport, which again, I find fascinating. But now you will find sustainability in nearly every global sport. I'm a member of UN Sport for Climate Action Framework. We were one of the founding members, and there's now, I think, over 300 global sports in there. You name it, they're all in there. So they are now leaning into it. Are they using it as a commercial driver as much as we are? I would say probably not.
I mean, congratulations is what I want to say. I mean, you're bringing in, you named it all, these global brands, the United Nations. I mean, this is not the normal conversation you would have about a sport when we're talking about climate goals and UN goals and international policy. But just in everything you said there, I'm thinking, I'm thinking like a national security journalist. I'm hearing, oh, okay, major global corporations, the cooperation from countries as diverse as the Emirates and the United States. In the climate we're in now. But you also said you were surprised that some, commercial representatives may not want to buy in or be a part of this. Are you really surprised? I mean, we know what's going on in the United States and other countries where not everybody, not only do they not buy into sustainability, they flat out reject climate change theory. That's the world we live in. But why I wanted to talk to you is that you mentioned it earlier. You can go to every sports website and you can go to the NFL and they have a page about how they believe in sustainability and they encourage it. And they have a page on their job board about how they believe in diversity and equity and inclusion and they promote it. And there are versions of that at Major League Baseball, at NHL, at Formula One is really big on sustainability.
Yeah, Ellen's amazing. NFL do a great job. We work with the NBA, we work with all of them, but they are all, I would say, some are flying, some are just getting started. But they're definitely all there. Some are shouting about it, some are not. But I think my point was integrating into commercial.
Yeah.
So integrating into business, which we're I suppose a dynamic, fast-paced commercial business. So that's what we did from day one. They're probably keeping them separate, is what I'm seeing.
I mean, how much of your time it sounds like you're building a constituency for sustainability, and inclusion and every other aspect of your whatever you define as purpose-driven. So how do you see the reception lately in these last few years you've been doing it? And I ask in this context where, 20 years ago or so, athletes were told more than they are today that, the phrase shut up and play, not sign up for political, causes or worry about values. But I've talked to already sports agents who say, this is the creator culture. This is the influencer age. Young athletes, they seek out initiatives like this. They want to associate themselves and create brands for themselves, not just young. Also, I've heard retiring athletes who are now also looking for, deals and kind of brand associations that match their values like this. Do you see that rise? Is it as an active thing that even, I don't know, sailors in either it's in SailGP or just in sport in general are looking for more?
Yeah, I definitely do. I think you're right. I think athletes care more about their personal brand and their legacy than ever before. I think they want to align with values, and I would say they're more outspoken in their values than they ever have been. I mean, there's different cultures going on. I think there's still traditional sports that there's quite controls on athletes from a commercial and they protect athletes in many ways. I do believe athletes shouldn't be put in a position to answer questions that they're not educated on, or it's not their voice to be heard. But what I do believe is they can use their voice in the right way, and actually will come on the Impact League. But part of the Impact League, which is our athletes doing good for people and planet and being incentivized, they're educated in why are they doing that? What is it? So then when they talk about it, it's talking from real action and impact. It's not just talking about and a view or an article they've read. Like they can't get caught out because they've done it and they're in it. And I think that's the important thing. It's really hard for athletes to get caught out on bigger issues. And actually that I don't think it's very fair to always look to them to comment. So I think athletes, you know, agents still want to control athletes. I was an agent in my past. I get that. But I think athletes are more active than ever. They see the benefit commercially and for them, and they just want to do good. And they know their fans want them to do good. And yeah, I think they need to be in it, though. I think, you know, a great example, actually, Sebastian Vettel is an owner of the German team. Phenomenal guy, you know.
Formula One champion, former world champion.
An incredible guy on the track. And he bought into the German team. You know, we weren't sure, you know, when people come in, how active are they going to be? I think it was like their first race, you know, he came to Cadiz and he was out on a boat picking, you know, I think we were doing seagrass cages. He was out. He was just out there. And he was like, I want to get hands on. He is all in. We were just in Sassenix doing events. He did like 3 local impact projects, working with kids. You know, he loves that side of it, of getting involved, of understanding. You know, he's looking at data sampling on the ocean. Again, he's really educating himself if you look at some of the content. And that's brilliant. They're leaning in. They want to learn, you know, and then they want to use their platform in the right way to talk about it. So I definitely think, and young athletes, you know, some of our young athletes or other athletes in sport I deal with, I think they're very mindful of this, and this is the world, and they want to understand it and be good ambassadors. And it is really front of mind for them.
Why do you think that is? I mean, I saw one of your earlier clips. You talked about growing up near the seaside in Scotland, and you know that could make any young adult or young person want to, you know, have a life that has something to do with the ocean and save the ocean. I grew up in Florida at the beaches as well. My parents grew up in Miami Beach, so. Wow. You know, my parents now live on Lake Michigan. My, you know, grandfather was a sailor, you know, so it sticks with you. But why do you think it is that there's been this change that kind of gives people permission? I mean, I look at, you mentioned Sebastian Vettel, I look at Lewis Hamilton and how he's such, I mean, at some point in your career, if you're 7 world champions, you have the kind of imprimatur to do what you want, say what you want with, you know, and sponsors be damned or whatever it might be. But this is a guy who was wearing Black Lives Matter shirts on the grid when people were freaking out about, you know, what you can and can't say. And do you think, I don't know, why do you think there's been this kind of a sea change where young people are just automatically coming into the world or coming into sport already thinking the way that you were hoping they are thinking?
Yeah. I mean, I used to work for Lewis for a few years, and he is an incredible human, right? One of my favorite athletes in the world. And he had this vision and passion to do good from day one. He obviously had to wait in his career to figure out when it was right. And I think he's authentic and he wants to stand up for what he believes in. And he knows that he can make a difference in that sport. And he's brave and I mean, he is inspiring. You know, there's no other word to describe him. And he knew he was going to do that a long time ago. And it's just now he's activating, I suppose, and doing more, setting up incredible organizations. So I don't know. I think it's maybe like, I mean, there's probably so many things to unpick here. Is maybe the way we're consuming content, social media, the media landscape, you know, young people just feeling more that they have a voice and they should use it and they want to be more active. Where I suppose maybe like, gosh, I'm sounding old here. My era, it's like, just crack on, work hard, don't say anything, don't get involved, you know, stay in your lane. Where I think like those days have gone. At school, they're taught to like have your own voice, be yourself, be brave, stand up, stand out. You know, so I think that's probably a massive societal thing. But I think athletes, you know, athletes just probably see the commercial potential too, and there is a study that we looked at, I think it was MIT, which shows that the athlete's voice is more powerful than ever. You know, like they did a study on like scientists, politicians, and obviously you know, that world is complex. And so fans are listening to athletes, and I think it's back to what Mandela said, which still stands true to this day. Sport can speak to people in a different way. It can get through, you know, whatever age. It kind of, you know, takes away barriers that you expect. You're watching your favorite, you know, race at the weekend, and you are more receptive to listening to what they're saying because it talks to you in a way that you want to consume, not news. People are scared of news. Like, so So I think there's many things like that, but sport is so unique in the fan following, the billions of people. You've got this audience, that's this captive audience. And we all know that now also they follow athletes more than teams. I think when I grew up, again, you followed teams, not athletes. You didn't know the athletes so well, but athletes, the marketing, the media landscape, they're bigger profiles than the teams nowadays. So again, if an athlete has a view, that's what cuts through. So yeah, I think there's many elements, but I think it's great, and I think, young people like my son. I'm trying to think of good examples. Like Jane Fonda died recently. Not Jane Fonda. Jane Goodall died recently.
You did?
Jane Fonda. I hope she hasn't died. I love her. Jane Goodall died recently, and that was devastating. I was really sad. And my son has the book. Our Little Big Dreams, and he'd read about her, and he also has the Marcus Rashford book, and he knows what these people have done for society, and he loves that about them. He's like, but mummy, that woman helped change the jungle, he was saying, but he doesn't understand it. But like, she saves the planet, like she was great. And I think that they're just learning about people differently than maybe we did. And that is very inspiring.
I think all that sounds right. And I think it leads to behavior changes and consumer changes. I mean, I was at a reception at a Formula One race this year where one of the hosts was a new company that lets people invest directly in the athletes, like you were saying earlier, where the theory is in the old days, if you liked Michael Jordan, you could buy his shoes. And these days, you could almost in a kind of a Bitcoin way, you can invest in the athlete. You can literally through digital finance and fintech, invest in that person. That takes a lot of, I think, gumption, a lot of political dexterity, a lot of knowledge to, more than just being a fan. When you attach a name to somebody with your pocketbook, that's something fascinating to me. I mean, I wanted to ask you about COP28. You guys had a presence there at the climate conference in Dubai, which is a big one for all the ones that we've had in recent years. It was interesting to me and surprising, and it's kind of what where I started to understand how frankly real you and SailGP are, how real you guys are about what you're doing and about being purpose driven. Because it's a controversial event, but it's a popular event, and there's lots of reasons for doing it. Why were you there? And talk to me, if you can, a little bit about. I mentioned this earlier, kind of the difference you see working with country to country, and how you might have to tailor your message or your work or your expectations, and where you've been able to make progress.
Yeah, it was kind of a coincidence, I'm not going to lie. So SailGP was actually racing in Dubai at the same time as COP. So our race schedules coincided. And SailGP, we're not here to just lobby and sit in conferences. We're here to do it and show people and inspire people and operate differently. So I think that's who we are. And because we're racing during COP, we had to utilize that opportunity. It would be mad not to. And we set ourselves a goal of being the sport leading the conversation for athletes at COP. And so, we went all in. We did a takeover of our broadcast. We called it the Race to Future takeover. So we then, really explained to fans, different elements. We talked about energy. We talked about inclusion. We talked about carbon. So educating your millions of broadcast viewers, as well as your on-site fan experiences, about why they should care, what COP is about, helping the planet and nature, biodiversity. So why should they care? And you make it simple, you break it down. And then we went to COP. We went on force. We did events, we had athletes speaking. We kind of were there, and we wanted to be a big voice. And it was really exciting, actually. You meet the most inspiring people. And I think COP, sometimes people don't feel they act enough. But for me, actually, it's the people you meet and the side conversations and the collaboration, because ultimately sectors get together. So you could be sitting by a sector who you'd never think's relevant to sailing, and then you end up coming up with amazing innovation. So I think it's brilliant from that perspective. And we really enjoyed, I suppose, showcasing our sport during that moment. But do we do it all the time? No, it's a coincidence. We crack on with who we are and what we do and what we need to achieve. I think we want to get our house working in the right way and inspire others. We're not going to spend our time, that's my job, is doing action. I think that's where the Impact League kind of really shows that we're all about tangible action. We're not about just talking. We want to do it. and talking kind of comes after that.
Do you guys work with like navies on your like when you come up with new developments? Are you getting calls from the Pentagon or the British or the Royal Navy
I
saying,
couldn't tell you that.
"Wow,
No, we do have so we have our boat builders. So it's a bit like, I suppose, Formula One, but with SailGP, we own all the boats and we manage them. So it's a one design boat, not like other sports. So
right"?
we have our own boat builder and they maintain, they repair, they upgrade the boats, and then they share the data as well, actually. So it's a super fair playing field. And that's why athletes love it, because they have to be the best athlete. And so our technical facility moved from New Zealand to the UK. Recently, we just launched it. And so, yeah, we do look at other industries that use the same materials as us or have the same technology, or where we could add our technology to add value, which could be, like you said, Navy or, other elements. But we're just kind of looking at that now. But we're a very collaborative organization. I think that's something that, we feel like we're bigger than sport. We're entertainment. We're like, a innovation facility. So that's the fun side. And there's so much potential, like you said, for future, to work on.
Yeah, that's another reason why I wanted to have this conversation, is because I see a lot of the same sponsors on the sides of the boats at SailGP, or companies like Oracle. Oracle is running your cloud computing for your races. Oracle is also competing for the cloud at the Pentagon here in the United States, but they're also competing for things like creating Golden Dome, President Trump's vision for a new missile defense agency. These are different worlds. You often don't think of, climate activists and military capabilities, but Formula One has a lot of similar just cross pollinations and if not direct partnerships for the same companies that are involved in things like supply chains or manufacturing locations, new, materials, carbon fiber. This is cutting edge stuff. So clearly governments are going to want to be interested, right?
Yeah, I mean, we focus on our sport, right? Our sport is
Yeah.
all about our fans and making it the best on-water product it can be. And that's really our focus, like we're still in season 5. We are such a baby, so sometimes, well, we're a toddler probably now. So we've still got to focus on that and make our league incredibly strong. We need to double our fan base year on year. We still have all that to go. So like you said, there is probably huge potential of collaborations in the future in different business areas. Foiling technology is used in shipping a lot. How can we be involved in that? And we will get there, but it's about the on-water racing product. How do we make our events the best events? Fans want to come, people want to watch, people want to sponsor and invest in us. That's really kind of our single focus for the next 5 years is to do that and be financially sustainable, show that this is something that works. And I mean, we are very, very nearly there. We've sold most of our teams. When I joined, we owned all the teams bar one. We will have 13 boats on the start line in season 6. And pretty much all of them are owned by third-party investors. And the values of them are incredibly, the increase that over the last 5 years. Something we're very proud of is building such equity that these boats are seen as such a great investment globally.
Tell me about in the Impact League, like some of you mentioned, you want to be tangible, you want to actually, put your money where your mouth is in sustainability. I mean, there's so many interesting projects on the side, but just how the league works itself. So to let everyone know, like alongside of racing on the water and getting your championship points, similar to kind of Formula One throughout the season, there's an Impact League, and there's 10 categories. It's team-based energy, on-water fuel, recycling streams, single-use plastic, team travel and accommodation, lighter diets. I want to ask about that. Using your voice, DI. I mean, all of these categories teams are vying for. And I've heard you even say some of them are kind of like ratting each other out when they don't live up to it.
They are. Yeah, they are. So I suppose to go back, people that might not know the Impact League, in season 2, we set out to redefine sailing. That is on and off the water. So to redefine sport, that is caring about having a league that cares about people and planet. And so that's where the Impact League kind of came up with redefining performance, because business cares about performance, about your D&I goals, your carbon footprint, like your impact on planet and people. Business has always cared about that for a long time, but sport hasn't, I suppose, had that level of sophistication in the way that we celebrate that. So we set the Impact League. So we're the only sport with 2 trophies. I love when you come to SailGP, you see 2 trophies, one for the planet, one for racing. I would say the planet one is so much nicer. sustainability of the planet, made of recycled materials. And we did it, yeah, to embed in the DNA of SailGP that our athletes need to operate a different way. And like you said, we used to have 10 criteria, and it's about what they can control. Because the global league, we run all the big stuff, the shipping of the boats, the really like how we run the events. They just run their team. So it was looking at what can they affect and how can they change. What was amazing is when you give them targets, athletes are very competitive. If you say reduce your on-water fuel of your chase boat or reduce your energy, they all have their own team bases where they're home for the race weekends. We said reduce your energy consumption. In one season, they reduced it by 50%. Because they were mindful, because they were obsessed with winning. So they were like, got monitors. And they're thinking, how do I draw down that? That energy, and how do I make it, reduce it? What do I do?
It's a competition, right?
But it's competition. When you make it competitive, they then want to win. But it's about giving them the data and educating them to how they should operate differently. And I think the big thing about the Impact League, it's not about being perfect. It is not about being perfect. It's about understanding and taking small steps, that we can take. SailGP is a sport, right? We are a sport, but what can we do to make our sport better? We did that. So now we're in season, I would say 4 it was. The teams then said, this is kind of easy. I mean, that was a really silly idea to say to me it was easy. But I feel like plastic, all of that, it's who we are. Like, they don't want to have single-use plastic on site. So that became kind of standard. So they said their feedback, because you've got to have this two-way. You can't change behaviors and culture in a sport without listening to what they see and what they want and understanding how they're finding the experience. They said they want to do a few bigger, better. So a few big impact projects a year and really deliver long-term impact and have enough time to develop these. And so we do 4 focus areas now. So we still look at how they operate at events, but we do 4 areas. So one on obviously waste, one on carbon, like climate reduction, one on D&I, like inclusion in general, and one on female athletes, which I'd love to talk about. And yes, giving them the 4 areas, and we have judges that judge the entries. So you make it like you bring these amazing people from around the world that are like Rachel Kite, who's like a climate, specialist, climate envoy of the world. You have scientists, you have youth ambassadors, you have NGOs, we have a motorsport female athlete, Jamie Chadwick. We have Kelvin Beecham from the NFL. We have Ellen Jones from Formula One, used to be a judge. We have the NBA head of sustainability is a judge. We have people outside the world judging our teams to make them better and giving them advice about what else you could do. So we're now focusing on the 4 big areas, and the projects they're coming up with are amazing. I mean, it's actually quite timely. The New Zealand team just submitted for their climate action submission. They really wanted to lobby for a marine protected bill in New Zealand. For the Gulf in New Zealand wasn't protected, and it really needed to be. So they went out and they lobbied and they campaigned, and they've got big voices out there. They're very famous in that market. And yesterday, the bill passed. So part of them influencing it, they got a bill passed. I think it's 6% more of that Gulf will be covered, will be protected now. And we know that the ecosystem, like the regeneration, will be phenomenal. And our athletes at the heart were a part of that. And that is, the kind of impact you have. It's not like saving 10 plastic bottles. Like, for me, it's the big systems change and, what they can do to really drive that home. And who they can work with, who they can collaborate with to do that. And that's what the Impact League is. It's this ecosystem of amazing athletes, impact projects, local NGOs, judges. It's that community, and I call it the purpose family. That's what you're building, a community that is way bigger than you, that is using a behavioral science model to make your sport better. And I think, we've had, I think it was 150 projects in the last 4 years for the Impact League. I mean, we report it year on year, but it's definitely something we're very proud of. And it shows that we want to act. It's not about just talking, you got to do it. And then athletes feel, more authentic and confident to do that too.
Excellent. Women's pathway and all that SailGP is doing. So for fans, I know the league has already required that there's at least one woman on the boats of the team. These are 6? There's 6 different positions on each boat. Is that right? But there's more. Some are already doing more, and there's now training specifically to train more elite sailors to be qualified or able to race these crazy boats. But tell me again, not necessarily why, but
Why not?
How,
I always
yeah,
say.
why
Why
not? And
not?
how's the feedback? And especially, well, frankly, especially in sailing, I mean, I think it's fair to say people might still think of sailing, especially sailboat racing, as a
Yeah,
pretty elite world, a pretty white world, maybe a white male world. And so
yeah.
you're making it look different on purpose. So talk about how that, again, the kind of resistance or acceptance you've had in pushing that initiative.
Yeah. So I think, when we talk about purpose, it's social and environmental sustainability, a bit like the Impact League. They both go together and sports put them apart, but for us, they're interconnected. And actually, from the moment we came and wanted to redefine sailing, we knew we needed to open up sailing. We needed to open up to people who wouldn't consider it. We need to open it up to athletes that, have not been allowed into the sailing community, like you said. So I think for me, it's not been the most inclusive sport, and part of what we're trying to achieve is open the sport to more, and that's fans and athletes. And so,
Yeah.
yeah, we wanted SailGP. I think that the opportunity about SailGP is not many sports in the world could be truly equitable. I mean, you've got like volleyball, I think bobsleigh, but that boat goes faster with men and women working together. That's like the boardroom. And so and there's no data proving that men and women can't do these positions. When I first came in, I remember people saying to me, women can't drive these boats, women can't grind, which is the position. And I'm like, why? And they're like, well, they just can't. So I think there's a lot of preconceived ideas, and there is that in different sports, when actually our job is to break boundaries, to like shatter these ideas and prove that with the right training, experience, and environment, making the sport ready for female athletes to succeed, they will succeed. And so, we do training camps, we have women's performance program, which we look at female health, safety, brand training, and like all they need is how there's an experience gap of like 15 to 20 years. All they need is when that gap gets closed, they will be on these boats because they have the medals, they have the experience, they can do it. They just need the time to prove that they can do it. And so it was iconic this year, the Brazilian boat, which was a new team into the league, had a female driver. And it's really important for us that the female athletes, we help them be the best they can to get the jobs based on performance, right? We're not there from a, communications or like a quota standpoint. We are there to create long-term change. So these athletes have performance at the heart, and they will have a long-term career. So Martine Grael is a driver in one of the fleet, the first ever woman to drive a boat, which sometimes I think other sports don't understand, but that is iconic. You have young people around the world watching a woman driving the fastest boat pretty much in the world.
This is like being the quarterback of the team. I mean, it's the leader, right?
Yeah.
This is a major change.
And she's phenomenal, and she's an incredibly focused woman. And what we want to do is get more female in these positions. We do have a female grinder, we have lots of female strategists, but yeah, you'll see some exciting I suppose evolutions coming from us about how we are going to fast track female athletes in our league and create these long-term career paths. And that's looking at athletes, like elite athletes, like on the boat, and looking at coaches, female coaches. There's no female coaches pretty much in our league, or in 13% in global sailing. Women's positions of responsibility, which we do really well as a league. As a sport, I think we're 48%, or we're nearly 50% at senior leadership team of women. And actually we have a female CFO, we have a female chief content officer, we have a female chief marketing officer. That is unheard of in sport. So we have women in these big positions of responsibility who are just challenging the sport to think differently and show up differently, because the female fan was not really being served. It was about 18 to 20% when I joined. We're now nearly 40%. So we know that female fans like our product, but they probably just didn't understand it or engage there or think it's for them. So I think there's a huge potential in our sport in general. The female fan and the power of the female fan for luxury brands or brands we work with, they're the decision makers. We know that 80% of decisions are made by women, in a household. And, things like that. It's, so we want to show that we have men and women together, and it's about working together to make this sport better. And that's part of our, again, redefining sailing.
I mean, women like Rolexes too. So,
and I think women are 75% of women make the final decision on what watch you buy. I read the other day. So, yeah.
In one way or another, I'm sure that's true. But yeah, I think in that list of female executives, you left yourself off, and it's worth pointing out. You're the one, right? So, and also I think I noticed it. Racing on the Edge is SailGP's, for lack of a better comparison to me. It's the Drive to Survive for sailing. And the first episode of this season is all about Martine and Martini and her taking on this position as the lead driver, what it means, the added pressure, the unfair added pressure of all eyes on a woman who must succeed. It's a great episode. I highly recommend it. Look,
yeah, that's one of the best views episodes too. That was one of the most engaged episodes we had. And like you said, like
not
you'll see the
surprised.
emotion in that. You see the emotion in that. Like that's what I'm saying. This is changing the way anyone thought sailing should be. And it's like these are the women at the heart. And these women are one of the most inspiring people I've worked with. They have great stories, they're passionate, they are resilient, they are breaking boundaries. They are on these incredibly fast boats. And yeah, I would echo anyone watching. Get to know our female athletes. Honestly, they're mums. We have so many mums in the league, and they're out there racing with newborns on the shore. They're just, yeah, I mean, they
I
inspire
thought you were going
me.
to say like on the boats. Like
Not on the boats, but they inspire
I
me.
want to see baby Bjorns on the boats during the
Yeah, probably health and safety might have something to say about that.
Oh wow. Okay.
But no,
Well,
we
it's the
definitely
youth.
have.
It's the new youth constituency. You got to build the
Yeah,
next generation of sailors.
maybe a bit younger.
Maybe next. Look. D- I want to ask you to drive us forward to wrap it up. I think at COP I heard you say the ocean's losing. We feel like custodians and guardians of the oceans. We have a responsibility to use our voices for good and really engage the wider public in climate action. Do you have hope? And if you do, why? Why do you have hope that might change and we can turn this around and literally do something as monumental as save the oceans?
We have to. I think as Dr. Sylvia Earle, who's one of
Oh,
inspirations of my career, she
she's the
always says
best.
to me, she gave away the Impact League trophy the first year, and that was the only person I wanted to do it. She said to me at Climate Week a year ago, never give up hope, Fiona. If we don't have hope, no one has hope. You have to keep hope. So I think, sport, maybe working in sport, there's always a comeback. There's always hope because anything can happen. And the ocean, we're custodians of it. We know it can regenerate. It just needs people to understand it and value it. It needs a PR agency. It really does. It needs like someone to communicate better and say like the ocean is literally the world. Without the ocean, there is no world. And people to connect that because a lot of people don't see or understand it or live near the ocean. So yeah, you've got to keep hopeful. I mean, why not? I have 2 kids. I want to leave them there in the world in a better place than it is today. And we've got to stay positive and have hope. And again, sport hopefully can be a comeback and help the ocean and the planet do that.
Oh, if that's not a great message to end on, I don't know what is. I mean, we asked you to be our first guest because, our mission is to try to find stories that make us more connected, that show how we are more connected, which I think makes us more competitive, our ideas, and that all leads to making us more secure, the world that I came from. And this seems to do it all for me. And so I think if the Earth already has a hell of a spokeswoman in you. So thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us.
Thank you so much. I can't wait to watch the rest of the episodes as well. Excited.
Excellent. Yeah, stay tuned. We've got lots to come, but I really appreciate it. Fiona, Morgan, thanks. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.